Thank you all for coming. I am Vulture editor Jackson McHenry, and with me we have Dan Levy, who plays David. We have Eugene Levy. We have Catherine O'Hara, Annie Murphy, Emily Hampshire, and Noah Reid. Thank you. So, from what I understand, this is the first time you all have gotten to watch the holiday episode. What was it like? You were all laughing a lot in the back, so I was excited about that.
I cried. Eugene makes me cry.
I was the same.
Yes, well, that's been the story of my career, I guess. That was lovely, thank you.
Nobody else wants to say anything.
I was watching and judging your directing, and I was impressed.
Nice job, Daniel.
Thank you.
Lovely job.
Now you guys have to guess which half of the episode Dan directed. I was just sitting there being like, is anyone laughing?
They were laughing. So.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, we paid them all to be here, so. Thank you for showing up, by the way. Thank you to all of you.
It's that time of year, kind of, when you find yourself actually watching the Hallmark Channel sometimes, right?
For comfort.
Just to get a little hit.
Or the Fireplace Channel, for that matter.
They just put on the Yule log and everything on Netflix. So how did the idea to do a holiday episode first come along? And I mean specifically holiday, because it's both Christmas and Hanukkah, as the decorations really indicate.
Yeah, in case you couldn't tell. Inclusion. We had decided to do one. We thought it would be nice. We thought it would be sort of in line with the show. And so we did. But
Wait, tell that again.
just a quick trip into the mind of Daniel Levy. we had...
Because I'm not sure I can follow that.
I'm on fire today. We had an idea to do this, and so we reached out. Nobody cares about this answer. What a stupid thing for me to be talking about.
I love the on fire line.
We wanted to make sure that it would air around the holidays, because that to me is like all the iconic holiday episodes. They always, like a Downton Abbey, always did like a Christmas or a holiday sort of special that happened over the holidays. So we wanted to do that, and fortunately all of our people who would check mark that being a thing that we could do said yes.
And so how did you, I love the idea of having the flashback, because we're this far enough into the show that we sort of think of the Roses as living in Schitt's Creek and sort of being part of it, and then you get the sense of, oh, they had this whole life, Paul Schaefer was playing the piano, they were having these Christmas parties. It kind of jars you back into thinking of kind of the original setup.
Well, the last time I think we showed the mansion was in the very first episode, the very first scene in our very first show. And you know, the great thing about this show now, as we progress from season to season, is how this family has learned to be a family. And in those days, it was all about money. Money was the Band-Aid that kind of cured everything in this household. And there were kind of like four almost disparate lives living in a world that revolved around money. Alexis was touring the world, kind of
Yacht to yacht.
I would call it kind of a fast lane with bad company. And when she was quite young, and David was running his gallery and paid for it by the family, and everything that was sold pretty much funded by the family. And the core of what emotionally I think this episode kind of peaks to, although we've been building over the seasons, is just how this family has learned to function and appreciate each other, and truly know what family, the meaning of the word family.
Yeah,
And also, it was Johnny's fantasy, but really it was mine, Moira's, just to live in that world again. Because the money was a good thing.
Yes. Well, I was wondering, because at the end of the episode she has the line about the menorah, do you think if they all got their money back that Moira would just be like, I'm out of here, I'm back to this life, or has she learned more?
How long would it take?
No, I like to think it actually would really affect Moira. When, be careful what you wish for. Kind of, and I think, I imagine if Moira actually got out, she would miss something, because obviously what Eugene just said, they've become a family, and which parents get to be with their grown children this much? My kids are 24 and 21, and they're, where are you going now? Well, who are you with? What did you have dinner? What did you do? And now, this is a fantasy for parents, really, to be with their kids this much. So yeah, I would miss that. And the town people, they're so lovely. The Schitts.
They really do love
They don't smell like roses.
I have sort of a kind of logistic question, because Moira gets to wear this gigantic fur hat and these really, I love that, but you normally shoot in the town of Goodwood, Ontario, correct? And it's typically summer in Schitt's Creek. Were you filming this in the winter, or were you pretending that it was winter?
Acting, lots of acting.
We were shooting it in the dead of summer. And all of
noses
those
painted red.
Yeah.
Mine didn't have to be. I showed my real nose.
So it was all part of what went into the logistics of the episode, was figuring out all the post effects that would have to go into it. And I'm like a big stickler for things looking and feeling right. So I was like, well, do we shoot it in the winter? How do we do this? And this post effects company, who is fantastic, assured us that they would be able to sort of paint a very dreamy world that we've never been able to see. And I think part of it for me, like, in terms of creating what this episode would look and feel like and what it was supposed to say, it was so much that I feel like the audience hasn't really seen. You got to see their old life in a different capacity of them, rather than them being like extracted from their home. It was a glory day kind of situation. And you also get to see this town in the wintertime, which we never really do because it's a summertime show. It's a show that, we don't show the disparity of winter because that's too sad. These people's lives, if you really dismantle the show, like it's two grown children sharing two single beds in one room. We don't need winter slush. We want to create the illusion that this is still something wonderful. So, I think it was supposed to be sort of this nice one-off episode where all of you got to sort of peek behind the curtain at what these people used to be.
And it's the first time Johnny's worn a sweater in the show, and we thought it was a nice kind of holiday-ish touch that Johnny's more in a sweater, but because we were shooting it in the summer, I decided to go sleeveless.
So if you guys want to note that down for a piece of trivia, that's a gift.
Straight to Tumblr. And going back and showing them at the whole height of their money and kind of power, designing their looks in the Christmas episode and figuring out kind of what their lives would be like. What was it like to go back and kind of play them before they've learned anything, really?
Catherine, any thoughts?
It was fun. Fun. Yes. I loved forcing David to sing with me at the party, then getting rid of him. David, step aside. And I love your look. Your look,
that
what you
hair.
thought was a
Sides
cool
look.
look for your hair.
Because he leans into the moment and then it's yanked away from him. It's just dark. It was all done in one take as well, so that was also part of we must have shot it like 15, 20 times, and I was co-directing with our co-director Andrew Cividino, and doing the take, and it was all one take through the house, and then running back to the monitors and rewatching it, and they'd be like, there's a background performer that's staring right into the lens. We're like, will the audience see it, or do we have to do it again? We might have to do it again. So we're going to be doing it all again for the 50th time, okay? And just as much excitement. Okay.
I remember
funny
people
process.
also had a really hard time chanting the name Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, so we're going to do Johnny, and people were like, John. Like no one could.
Not that hard. One person start it, and the rest of you join in. But it's funny you were mentioning the looks, because I think the holiday clothes are an element that we didn't get to play with, and I think particularly for like Emily was very excited.
The most excited.
She leaned over to me as we were watching it and went, "Oh, I look so fucking cute."
Waiting for that hat. I wanted to wear that hat. It was hot. It was hot, but it was worth it.
You did not go sleeveless. You were like,
No,
I'm
I
in
was
for
in
the
like
sleeve.
a Canada Goose, but it was covered because Stevie wouldn't have a Canada Goose.
Yeah, you need to, avoid the branding. But yeah, I'm sort of slightly worried about Stevie's holiday traditions in that they seem very unsustainable to drink 12 bottles of wine. But she gets sort of a little bit of a kind of like a Grinch experience where she gets brought in and she's feeling a little bit sort of warmed by the family company, and she's gotten this relationship with Johnny running the inn and everything. So, like, where do you see Stevie being? She's kind of grown a lot.
Yeah, I think she's been exactly what you said, kind of brought into this family, and I think at first begrudgingly so, just because you don't want to pretend you like something and then find out that you're like not welcome there or whatever. But I think every season she gets a little more, lets her heart be a little more open to this family and being in a family. That's really my hat, though my hat. But
she looks so fucking cute, guys.
Really getting to shine. And Noah playing Patrick, it's a lovely relationship between Patrick and David, because Patrick is still kind of in the process of coming out, and he's come out, but he's the one who kind of pushes David to open up more, and he's trying to say, you can bring in the decorations and everything. So, and they've, given the end of the last season, they've said "I love you" to each other. Where do you see that they are in the relationship?
I think it's like that. I think the way that Patrick would think about the Rose history is like a movie or like a series that he's watched or like keeps hearing about, or like it's not quite ever really real for him. He's like, okay, yeah, sure you did. So like that's, and I think there's a lot of fun, in that relationship that we get to play off of, that kind of like there's a semi like competitive, there's always a game afoot. And I think that's a lot of fun. But yeah, that's true. This episode is a bit of a jump from having said "I love you." So I felt like, at Christmas we've sort of gelled into a nice relationship place, and that sort of very, very still early relationship, but like, solid. Yeah, which is nice to play.
Yeah, and there's something very kind of comforting about the town of Schitt's Creek, that these guys can be out, and it's a small town sort of in nowhere, North America somewhere, and it's still very welcoming, and there aren't people who are outwardly sort of homophobic and something. Was that an intentional choice in writing the show? Yeah,
it was an absolutely intentional choice. I have no patience for homophobia or bigotry and won't put it on TV. So from the beginning, this was it was never going to be part of the equation, and I think as a result, it's been amazing to sort of read feedback, because I think that if you give people things, like if you show the other side, if you show homophobia or bigotry, intolerance, in a way you're fueling other people's beliefs. Mm-hmm. If you leave it out of the equation, you're saying that doesn't exist to me, and it shouldn't exist. So when people watch the show, you almost, letters we've been receiving from sort of people who have realized that their beliefs were biased or homophobic or bigoted, in a way by creating a space for people where love and acceptance is sort of paramount, and you're able to watch the growth and the comfort and the ease with which people can outwardly live their lives when they're not fearful of being targeted or talked badly about. That kind of growth, particularly for David, I think was really important, and I think from a lot of the response I've read has had sort of a ripple effect into people's homes. So. And having gotten that feedback, has that sort of in turn
have you brought that into the show or sort of thought about, are there ways that we want to depict this relationship?
No, I think that's been the problem with any kind of queer relationship on television, is that there's always been a room of people being like, well, how are we going to handle this? And the reality is you would never ask those questions of a straight couple. You would never have to question, should these people kiss? Should they touch each other? Should they hold each other? The intimacy that exists between straight people on television and in films, there is an ease because that has been what it's been like for years and years and years. But the reality is you cannot depict a relationship with any kind of strategic purpose because people don't buy it. And for us in the writer's room, and for me in particular in terms of just authenticating these people, my biggest sort of form of quiet protest was to say, like, no, I'm going to give this absolutely no thought and just proceed as I would a normal relationship, and that's what this should be. It's like I've heard stories of people in writers' rooms where executives are saying, like, well, we've had 2 kisses this episode. I mean, that's a lot. Fuck you. So, no, you have to treat relationships like relationships. You can't paint them with any kind of brush.
I think it just puts every single human being on the same playing field. It's not about sexual preference. It's not about black or white. It's not about male or female. It's just the people as people, and the stories deal with people. Period.
Yeah.
Also, if you expect the best of people, they're more likely to rise to the occasion than expecting the worst. Or expecting homophobia or any kind of discrimination or any kind of bad behavior.
Yeah. And then speaking of other parts of this relationship, are there any plans to have Noah, aka Patrick, sing again?
Hopefully.
We just happen to have a guitar.
No, you don't.
Just some caroling. It's just
Yeah.
That was a cruel joke.
You can just do it a cappella, can't you?
Yeah, that was that was a great. We had a lot of fun with that.
It was a lovely moment. It was lovely to see the way people responded to that online and people sending clips around of that. Like, Noah, what was it like to sort of have the response to it?
Very surreal, and it continues. It's really crazy. Between people doing their own rendition of it and sending it, and having, I don't know. It's mind blowing. I've never actually experienced anything like it. Other people have found a record that I made a year ago or 2 years ago and sort of just put there and didn't do any kind of promotion for it, and people have found their way to that, and it's amazing. But I do think it's really tied into the relationship. I think it's tied into all of the work that David has been putting into himself and that the family has been putting into sort of like being comfortable in their own skin in this new environment, and it's really that buildup was present in the payoff of that moment, I think.
Yeah. And speaking of another relationship on the show, Alexis is back with Ted, and I have to admit that I am slightly excited about it, but I'm slightly on the side of Ted's vet friends, and that I am slightly concerned about what she may do. And what is your position on how they stand?
I was also kind of on the side of the vet friends. They've had a real time together, but I really do think, to get on Alexis's side for a second, I think that she really had a lot of things to work through before being able to commit to somebody fully. And sometimes you gotta make mistakes in working through stuff, and sometimes you have to hurt somebody that you don't mean to hurt in the meantime. But I think they're in a good spot. Let's just say that. I think they're in a good spot going into 5. And didn't he look cute in that apron, guys? Yeah, little sweetie.
It's a funny thing, like love love situations like that because I feel like on TV shows there's like you're really quick to like throw someone with one person and then they meet someone else. And with the Alexis Ted thing, we knew what was sort of happening. We knew the long-term goal, and if we could get there, we're going to work through it. But it was like a 4-season arc that we sort of picked away at season after season because we didn't want anything to come easy to Alexis. And I think the character of Alexis is Annie's done such a wonderful job with it, but I think what's so great about Alexis is that she really has had the biggest change in the respect that she paid herself in season 1 versus the respect that she has for herself at the end of season 4. So that was sort of strategic in terms of like, how can we possibly get someone who turned down 2 engagements with the same person? How do you get her to win? How do you get them to come back together? And that was a really fun long character arc that we worked on.
Yeah, I mean, what is it like to sort of have to play that and to go into thinking about, making sure that you're on Alexis's side as you're playing her, if you.
I mean, I think it was really important because on paper, like when I first met Alexis, she's not the most likable creature on paper, but I think it was just really important to me to think of it as like everyone has many, many layers to themselves, and she really didn't know much about much, even though she'd had this like incredible worldly experience. She hadn't really dealt with like any kind of depth of emotion, and so it's nice to be able to like forgive her a little bit for that and understand that she has like multiple layers.
These kids were raised in captivity. Really,
Yeah.
they weren't living in the real world.
Alexis was really good at getting out of tight situations in foreign embassies.
That was her main talent.
That's her strong suit. Yeah.
And I think one thing that this episode really emphasizes is how far the show has come from its kind of initial premise, where it's not necessarily just fish out of water. It's now they're living in this town. They're sort of trying to figure out their lives still. Does the way you kind of think about writing the show but also playing these characters, has that changed now that you're sort of into later seasons of it?
Well, the show has always, to me, been about the family, about the Rose family. At the core of it all, it's about this family learning to be a family. And I think over the course of the seasons, we have learned so much, and these characters have learned so much about themselves and each other and other people that would never have entered their minds for 1 second, like I would say the townspeople, let's say, in the beginning, wouldn't have meant too much to this family in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, I think that's still a major part of what this show is the journey of this family from where it started to where it, is currently and where it will end up. That's really the heartbeat that keeps this thing going, to me.
I think the intention too was to, the first season was laying the groundwork of who these people are. They're not likable. They're freaks. They're weirdos. They don't know themselves. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they need. They don't know who they are. But the intention of the show, and I think what has been really fun to write as well, is that the nature of the show is that the audience learns in real time with all of these characters. We're never going to like have a quick turn and expect the audience to cry at something when it hasn't been earned. So I think part of what's been fun about this, particularly writing a comedy, is allowing the audience season after season to grow with these characters, understand the characters, and with that, the next season you can peel back the layers even more and tell sort of slightly more intimate or emotional or sentimental stories because you have earned all of these beautiful people's trust in the show because they care. So it was always quite strategic to make sure that by season 4 we're going to be in a much different place than we are in season 1. It was never intended to sort of be a flat line of emotional sort of superficiality.
Yeah, and Catherine, I always love the way that Moira pronounces words with like at least 17 different syllables. And for me in this episode, it's Capri. But have you had favorite words that you've had to pronounce or found ways into?
Oh, so many. Yeah, it's just fun. I keep thinking of bombalate, which means buzz. Can you feel the bombalate? Can you feel the room bombalating as I speak? Every word. Every fun word. I love the idea of learning a new word and then I'm going to use it. What good is it if you learn the word and don't use it? You have to use it in a proper meaning, with its proper meaning. And I'm trying to educate people along with myself. Haven't you all learned something? Oh, you're so nice.
Yeah, and also Annie and Emily, you both also have very distinctive voices on the show. That you sort of have the vocal fry or sort of Stevie's very direct deadpan. Do you find yourself staying in those kinds of voices as you leave it, or is it hard to get out of?
What's really weird is that you say that, and I've been recently like in stores, and someone will look at me and be like, there's some kind of connection or something, and then I'll speak, and then they'll be like, oh my God, I knew it was TV. I got it from your voice. And I didn't realize I had such a distinct voice. I thought maybe this, but no, not this at all. So I knew you had a whole thing.
I don't even know. Yeah, I get stuck sometimes, and it drives me insane. Yeah.
Both Annie
I'll
and
say about
Emily,
that.
I would say, are like the starkest contrast between who they are as people and who they play on television. I would say like the two of them are the farthest apart. Annie is nothing like Alexis in any capacity, like at all. And Emily is like incredibly enthusiastic and expressionful. Is that, we're gonna learn it. It's expressionful, and it's new, and it's great.
Have you learned nothing?
So it's very amazing because, I mean, they're just great actors, but it is amazing to sort of hang out outside of set and then be on set, and you get to experience the sort of two different people.
Wait, what about us?
Huh? I guess I was thinking mainly about myself and how close we are.
Yeah, and what is so exciting about this show is it's in so many ways kind of a little show that could, that we've gotten this whole crowd here for all of you, and it's like really built a following, and a lot of people really, I mean, just there are Schitt's Creek GIFs everywhere, there are Schitt's Creek clips, it's all sort of spread around. Was there a moment where you felt it kind of taking off, or you felt that the attention on it was really kind of growing?
It's really been in the last, couple of years that I've noticed that more people that come up to me on the street or at an airport, whatever, are talking about your show, Schitt's Creek. Love Schitt's Creek. Love the show. I mean, before that, people would, come up and talk about, hey, I see your feet are normal. Yeah. Nice seeing you. Or whatever, or American Pie. Had any apple pie lately? Whatever. But this is in the last 2 years, I think it's been 99.9% people coming up saying, love your show, hey, Schitt's Creek, and it's all about Schitt's Creek. So, yeah, it's been since we started, and where we are now, I think the awareness level is just mushroomed to such an extent.
I think because we write in a room and we act in a small room and I edit in a small room, that whenever I'm out doing anything, if someone's like, cool show, and I'm like, what's the show? What are we talking about? What do you mean?
Well, that's just the Canadian in you, I think, Daniel.
Yeah, there's been some amazing feedback. I feel like Noah, I feel like we get
I was gonna say it's probably around the time that I came on the show, Eugene. From what you're just from what you're describing, it's sort of.
I think you're onto something. It's around the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
The real star. It's really just
someone called Nielsen. Noah's over here.
Just in case you want to add someone to your show. And then you talked about the getting the chance to get more into the characters' relationships and sort of get into that emotional depth. What does this mean for season 5? Should I prepare emotionally for it, or are there more wrenching things coming?
Well, there's that incident with the 18-wheeler kind of right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, we've released a little tease. So there's a tease somewhere on the internet. I think what in terms of just the chapters of the life of this show, season 4 was really sort of a revelatory, emotional season for these people where a lot of things happened, and season 5, we just wanted to have fun. We thought, let's create memories for the lovely people that watch this show. Let's continue to give more of what we do and continue to build these characters and take our characters into places we've never seen them before and mix them all up, and you'll see characters who are now paired with each other in ways that they've never done we've never paired them before. I played baseball at one point. We're really pushing the limits. And if that's not a ratings headline, then I have no idea. But
you look good in a uniform.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of gym stuff before I got into that. Those pants.
I think we're about to run out of time, but if anyone else has one word that they would tease the next season with from the rest of the cast, maybe it would be a good way to do it.
Bumbulating.
Top that. Other people go, and then I'll say
Emily,
something.
no, we're gonna wait for you.
Oh,
Yep.
I wear something maybe better than that hat. I know you can't imagine me getting any cuter, but it's gonna be good.
Okay.
I have something separate to talk about. I just wanted to let everyone know that in the Christmas episode, I feel like we haven't talked about Chris quite enough, Chris Elliott. Chris ate, I believe it was over 45 sausage
Mini
rolls
sausage pigs in a blanket.
in that episode, and I just needed everybody to know that.
Yeah.
It's important that he be included.
Every take, a full pig in a blanket went into his mouth.
I just have to add an addendum to this comment here about Chris and his eating. He is notorious about eating anything you put in front of him on the set. You know, in our first season, he had a banana. He had to walk in eating a banana while he's talking to me, and of course we do many, many takes. And he not only takes a bite of a banana, he eats the whole banana when he puts it in his mouth, and then he has to do it again, and then he has to do it again and do it again. We had a party scene where Chris and I are, we got a little high, and we're sitting eating spare ribs, and they put the spare ribs down, and yes, they were good spare ribs. And
They're still talking about the spare ribs, so
Chris started eating the spare ribs on the rehearsals, and then on the shots where we're in the extreme background, he was still eating the ribs. He must have eaten 1,000 ribs, but yes, the boy loves to eat.
Well, on that note, I think we are fully out of time.
Can I have just a couple of announcements, just
Yes.
one more time? These are, some people might call them cheap plugs. But yes, this show does air December 19th.
19th.
10 p.m.
10 p.m.
Pop TV.
Wednesday, 10 p.m. On Pop, and and if you
Great
miss
plug, Dad. You're
if
killing
you
it.
miss if you miss the episode on the 19th, you can catch it on the Pop Now app absolutely for free from the 20th on. The show premieres in January on the 16th.
Yes.
There you go.
Starting with 2 episodes.
2 back-to-back episodes.
Back-to-back episodes. And in case you don't have Netflix or can't get Netflix or just think what they have to offer isn't enough, you can watch seasons 1 to 4 on the Pop Now app. And there we go. We have done the dirty deed.
Thank you all for coming to watch this.
And
we appreciate it immensely. Thank you.